Okay, so I didn't officially meet you all yesterday, although hopefully my face looks familiar by now. My name is Jennifer Wallace-Valdes. I'm a physical therapist, and I'm going to do a very short intro because I feel like Deborah and Paul and Hawken have already kind of given me a nice intro for sure. But what I like to tell everybody before I even get started is that the reason that I'm in front of you and the reason that I travel a lot to do these wasn't by a specific choice I made. That when I graduated from physical therapy school, I was a brand new grad, just got my license in my hand, and had my very first patient come in, probably on a Monday morning. And that patient was a 4.5-year-old boy who had a diagnosis on his prescription that said idiopathic toe walking. And so I'm a new grad, I'm getting all prepared, making sure I got my notes that I'm going to take, everything's ready to go, and I'm expecting to see somebody walking on their toes. Oh, idiopathic toe walking basically means this kid's walking on their toes and we don't know why. And so I'm looking for, oh, maybe he has a sensory integration disorder, because I'd seen that when I was a student. Maybe he has a mild cerebral palsy, something else that hasn't been diagnosed yet. So I start doing my evaluation and I start noticing a bunch of things. And this little light bulb starts flickering in the back of my head, and he got up off the floor in a really funny way. And I'm like, that's not normal for a 4.5-year-old. And then I had him roll up his pants so I could measure his ankles and his knees, and his calves were huge. That's not normal for a 4.5-year-old boy. And so little things started happening like that, and that little light bulb in the back of my head was getting a little bit brighter. Didn't know what I was dealing with yet. So through the evaluation, I wasn't seeing what I thought I might have seen. And I did see maybe, some tight muscles, and so I gave his family some, his mother and he were there. I gave them some stretches. I'm like, over this next week, do some ankle stretches. I think it was probably a hamstring stretch too over the next week, and then come back and we'll put together a plan. And they came back then, they walked out the door, and my boss comes up to me, who had been my supervisor as a student. She came up to me and she goes, "Did you see what I saw?" And I was like, oh, thank you. It wasn't just me, right? There's something there. And that little light in the back of my head was turned on through my conversation with her of those are those signs that could mean muscular dystrophy. And the only reason I even had a flicker of a light was because one of my colleagues in grad school had done an oral presentation about Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It wasn't even part of our curriculum. So luckily, my boss had seen one patient in her, probably at that time, 15-year career with Duchenne, so she saw it too. And, we don't know if it's Duchenne at this point. We just are seeing some signs. And so that family came back the next week, and I've got all prepared. As a physical therapist, I don't diagnose. That's a medical diagnosis, but I'm looking at them, and I'm wanting to give them the right input to make sure that they follow through on trying to get their diagnosis. So I look at them and I said, I think you need to get a second opinion. Well, they had already been to how many pediatricians, and they had had a neurologist who referred them to us. And the mother looks at me and says, "It's Duchenne, isn't it?" And I'm the one that dropped to the floor. I was just like, oh my God, she said that word. Because I was scared of that diagnosis and hearing that. So that mother just walked in the room. That family happened to be Deborah and Hawken Miller. And they were my very first patients out of PT school. Very shortly after those conversations, they got the right referral. They did, that quick CK test, got diagnosed within a month or two of that visit. And that was my first patient as a PT. And so not in the same way it's happened to all of you, but Duchenne just happened to me too. And it stuck with me. And if you've met Deborah, in her nicest way possible, if she finds something that works for her, she's going to hold on to it. And she helped nudge me in my way, and I just kept getting referral after referral. She founded CureDuchenne, and other parents would contact her and say, "What are you doing? Your son's looking great. What else could we be doing?" And she'd say, "Call Jennifer, call Jennifer." So my clinic kept getting lots of referrals. And before I knew it, I had almost a whole caseload of Duchenne and Becker muscular dystrophy patients. So I started my own business, which is called Duchenne Therapy Network. So somehow my career went from, I'm going to treat pediatrics and I love what I'm doing, to I'm treating Duchenne and I love what I'm doing. So I've been a PT for 16 years now, and all of my patients have Duchenne and Becker muscular dystrophy. And the other half of my career is doing this. So I get to travel around with the CureDuchenne team and plan events like this and teach continuing ed classes to other physical and occupational therapists primarily, and it's fantastic. And if you haven't met him yet, Doug Levine is sitting in the back of the room with the polo shirt there with his hand up. Doug is my colleague with CureDuchenne. He's also a physical therapist that has lots of experience in Duchenne as well. So that's I tried to make my abridged version of my story, but that's why I'm in front of you. Like a lot of you will say or find out, there's a lot of PTs that you'll meet that have never even treated one patient with Duchenne, let alone the 30 or so that I have on my caseload. So it is a little bit of a unique experience. So if you meet other therapists that don't have this type of experience, don't be surprised. It is unique. So that's our PT team. Oh, Joni's on there also. She's another one of our CureDuchenne PTs, and she lives in New Jersey. So she's kind of our East Coaster. Doug's in Texas, and I'm in California. And this I was just touching on just a little bit to kind of clear the air a little bit. As PTs, when we graduate from either a master or a doctoral program, we're basically generalists. We can sort of major in different areas, but we all graduate with the ability to basically treat any patient, from geriatric to pediatric, from orthopedic to neurology. And so it's not as specific as if you meet with a doctor who is an oncologist, right? They studied that one area. So most of us are just generalists. So we have to find our way and take courses and make our path of what we're going to specialize in. So Duchenne is a tricky one for PTs because we all go to school and we all start our careers thinking we're going to make everybody better. And most patient populations, that's a reasonable goal. And in Duchenne, we have to back up a little bit and understand what's happening and realize that we can make someone a lot worse by trying our typical techniques to make someone better. And so that's why Duchenne can be tricky, and you can find a lot of therapists that don't know the right treatment techniques and all to use. So what we developed a couple years ago now is our CureDuchenne certified PT list, and you can find that on CureDuchenne's website. And those are ones who have not just taken the course that either Doug or I have taught, but they've also read up on the literature that we've sent them and passed an exam and have applied more effort and diligence to become certified in Duchenne. So if you're looking for someone in your area, there might be someone on this list. And if you don't find someone under your state, under your area on the list on our website, then email me, because I might know someone in your area, because I've met a lot of therapists through the years that might be helpful. Okay. So in physical therapy, you might get all different kinds of treatments and techniques, but these are kind of the areas that we would mostly focus on, especially with a Duchenne diagnosis. Lots of stretching. We're going to talk about it. You can't deny it. Massage, which we call soft tissue mobilization in our technical terms. Aquatics. So anybody have aquatic physical therapy on their regimen? Oh, good. I see lots of hands. So that's a really valuable tool as well. Not all physical therapists do aquatics, though. There are some appropriate exercises they could recommend, but we have to be very careful with those. There's lots of equipment. I'm sure you're fully aware of that, but your physical therapist needs to be involved, or at least your occupational therapist, one of us, should be involved in helping you select and fit your equipment. Not just the vendors and the representatives from like the wheelchair company or something like that. You need to get a physical therapist involved to make sure it's the correct equipment for you. Because as many of you probably already know, it can be a fight to get the equipment with your insurance company, and then once you get it delivered, it's yours. They don't want to take it back. And if you didn't have the right people involved, you might end up with the wrong equipment and you might be stuck with it. Jen Shumsky's nodding her head because she knows all about this insurance stuff. Okay, and then consultation. So we don't just work out of a clinic and stay isolated in that clinic that we might be in. We can consult with all kinds of people. We're sort of looked at as the movement I'll just leave it with that, movement experts, right? We can help analyze what activity does your son like to do at school or after school or something, and if we're going to let him continue doing that, how can we adapt it so that it's safe for him. So a physical therapist should be able to look at it and say, oh, I see what muscles he's using or overusing, and if we did it this way instead, it would be better for him. So that's where we can come in with consultations. But we're going to start out with the stretching, and that's where a lot of the questions come from, so I just like to, let's get to it. So my general rules for stretching are up here on the board. Number one is stretching should not be painful. A painful stretch is really an ineffective or even it could be damaging. So stretching shouldn't be painful. It may take a while for someone who's resistant to a stretch to warm up to it, to allow it, but if they're fighting against you, you need to stop. You can't play tug-of-war with their muscles. So we have to find a way to get the stretch done effectively without hurting anyone. And then stretches, I always say, should be held for 60 seconds. We don't have a research article or literature that I can point you to that proves this, but 60 seconds is what I recommend, and the more and more I talk to other therapists, it's kind of where we're all headed. When you have someone who, you're not just stretching a tight muscle, right? There's inflammation, there's fibrosis, there's all kinds of things that are happening for someone who has Duchenne. So their muscles have more going on. So when you're stretching, those first 30 seconds, you may not get your maximal effect. You need the muscle to relax. You need it to warm up. You need circulation to increase, all of those things. So if you stop stretching at about 30 seconds, which you'll hear a lot of times, you may miss your maximum effect. If you hold it for a little bit longer, and as one of these says, oh, I don't have it on there right now. As the muscle relaxes, you push into it a little bit more. You might miss that maximum effect if you stopped at 30 seconds and didn't do all the way to 60. So try to do all your stretches for 60 seconds if it's tolerated. Oh, it does say right there, sorry. As the muscle relaxes, increase the pressure. A daily routine is most effective. And I don't believe Paul's back in the room yet, but he'd said it better than I could. They've stretched every day. And they're not the only family that's told me, oh, we were going to go to bed without stretching, and he reminded us because it was such a routine. And that's not just the Millers. I mean, I've had other families say that. But a daily stretching routine is the most effective. So our standards of care right now say 4 to 6 days a week, and that's what's published. But think in your mind, would you only brush your teeth 4 to 6 days a week? You know brushing your teeth works. You would brush them every day. So please brush them every day, and please stretch every day. But it should be done every day, and make it part of your routine, something that is not, oh, well, today we did it in the morning, tomorrow we'll just do it at night. You know, if as structured as possible is the easiest routine to adapt to, and so they know what to expect as well. I don't recommend what we're going to stretch on today, but I do recommend a massage table over a bed or a couch for stretching. If you can get, they have, folding ones. You can put them away when you're not using it. You can put it off to the side of the room, lightweight, different densities of foam, all kinds of good stuff. But a massage table allows them to be in whatever position you need them in, and you can work around them instead of they're on the bed, you stretch one half of them, and then they have to turn all the way around, so you stretch the other half or anything like that. And also, if the bed or the couch is too soft, the more you're pushing in, trying to get that really good stretch, they're sinking into those soft cushions, and then you're losing some of your effect. So if you can get a massage table and use that as your daily routine, that's my recommendation also. So then, if you have the time and the energy, I would love this ideal routine, that last point. My ideal routine for you would be do your warm bath, or have him do his warm bath, warm shower, something like that first. Get circulation going, get him relaxed, get the muscles relaxed. Then you can do some massage, and I'll show you a little bit about the massage later. But you could do some massage to the areas you're about to stretch, get him further relaxed, get more circulation happening, and then go into the stretching. Don't just go into lay down, we got to stretch. If you have the opportunity to do either of the other two, a warm bath or a massage first, do that first. So we're going to go through the 6 most common stretches that we use with patients who have Duchenne. And there are obviously other stretches. These are the most common ones that we end up prescribing. As some of our guys get a little bit older, they need additional ones added on. And some of our younger guys don't need all 6 yet. And stretches, even if I'm saying these are the most common ones for Duchenne, this isn't rocket science. This is what every physical therapist knows how to do with their eyes closed. I was going to say hands behind their back, but that doesn't work. But in their sleep, they can do all these stretches. So this isn't, something that you would take home and have to, think your PT is going to need to be trained. It's just these are the ones we apply to Duchenne most often. And each of these can be done in different ways. So I'm going to show you the most common way that we do it. But if you have someone that can't lay in that position or can't sit in that position, these can all be done in different ways that work for you. Okay? I have a volunteer already in the room. We have our young man Tyler, who volunteered this morning to get stretched. Okay, so I'm going to have his head on this side. Right there, mister. Isn't that soft? Say no, not at all. It's hard. We're going to pretend it's a nice, comfy massage table. Okay, yeah, I'll do that one in just a minute. I just need one. Thank you. Do you care if I take off your shoes? All right. Okay. So, Tyler, do you do any of the stretches when your brother does? No. Okay. So Tyler's brother does stretches. But he's very familiar with them, too, because I'm sure you watch him, huh? Some of them? That's okay. You can be honest. Okay. So I know some of you are sort of far away, and you need to see better. I don't mind at all if you come up closer. And we've got photos happening, and if there's certain ones that you need a photo or a video of, you have our permission to do so as well for your own learning purposes. Okay? So we're going to start from the first one is called the hamstring stretch. Okay? And that is this muscle on the back of his thigh right here. And a lot of times this one's really tight if you have Duchenne. So the way we're going to stretch this one is bringing the thigh so that it's vertical, straight up to the ceiling here. So his hip is at a 90-degree angle. And then from this position, I'm going to hold that leg there with one hand and raise his lower leg. He's doing it for me. Look at that. I want you to pretend your leg's asleep, that it can't raise itself. I'm going to do all the work. Oh, perfect. So I'm going to raise it up until I start to feel tension. And right there, he has a little bit of tension, okay? But it's not a lot yet, so I'm going to push into it just a little bit. You okay? Okay, now relax it again. There you go. Perfect. So he had to relax a little. We didn't want to fight each other. And so what I would do is find that bit of tension and hold it here for a bit while we talk, hang out a little bit. And as it starts to relax, it's going to, I'm not going to push hard, but it's going to go up a little bit more. So I may start somewhere around here. And during my minute, you'll see, oh, wait, look how much more we got. Okay? What he kind of wants to do, because he's not used to this, and a lot of the guys do this, is he's trying to stretch his legs straight. He's pushing into it like, hey, look, I can do more. But you don't want that. You want to keep this thigh nice and still, and then just work the lower part of the leg. Okay? No pain, though, right? Just a pull on the muscle is all you should feel back here. So sometimes when you're getting used to this, or one of your guys is just learning how to stretch, ask them, where do you feel it? That'll be one of your clues that you're doing the right thing. If you say, where do you feel it? And he says, in my toes, wait a minute, we did something wrong, because you wanted this one to be in the back of the thigh. And I want to put one little side note on this. A lot of times you'll see a hamstring stretch, or you may do your own hamstring stretch with a straight leg. We call it straight leg raise. It's not wrong to do it that way, but I have so many of my patients that end up having numbness or tingling in their foot while I'm stretching them that way, and we don't want that at all. So, and that's pulling on the sciatic nerve. Do any of you have sciatic problems? Yeah, exactly. You don't want to mess with that nerve. It's a real pain in the, because that's where it is. Anyways, that nerve goes all the way down to the toes. If I'm stretching right here, he shouldn't feel anything in his toes. Okay, so if you get that problem, or if you just want to start with this way, now you're avoiding aggravating the sciatic nerve at all. So you're not pulling on it by doing it this way. Okay, so that's why I recommend that hamstring stretch over some of the others. So I would say stretch it for 60 seconds, and if it's a real problem area, repeat it. So if this was one of his primary areas that we're always fighting, I would have stretched him, put his leg down. If I need to stretch out or shake it off, do that. And then we'd go up and do it for one more minute. So it would be 2 minutes total on the problematic areas. And you could do it once or twice a day, however your routine can work out best for you. The areas that you just always are battling, that are always problematic, spend more time on those ones because they need the more attention. Okay? Yeah, you could do a little bit more, but don't overdo it. Don't feel like you need to do 5 repetitions or anything like that. You could do 2 or 3 without any problem. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about hamstring? Yes?
I see in the picture you have a roll.
I need to take that out of that picture because someone asks me every time. So that roll is there because of the next picture. We just forgot to remove it for this picture. And every time somebody asks me. You could, yeah. Actually, when they start to have a lot of tightness in the hips and everything, what I end up having to do is put something next to this thigh to keep it from going all the way out to the side. Does that make sense? You know how sometimes if the guys lay on their back, they splay their legs out. So you might want to put something next to them to try to keep them as aligned as they can. Even though I'm working on the other leg, I want this one to be as close to neutral as possible. Now I want to point out too, I would have actually done this from this side because it's bad for my back to reach all the way across the table and over his body. And I'm asking you guys to do this every single day. So your spines, your necks, your shoulders are going to get a lot of work. And you want to make sure it doesn't cause problems and pain for you. So what I would have done actually is sit right here next to him. Bring his leg up into that first position. And then bring him up here where I'm now very close to his leg, so I'm not straining my shoulders or my back at all, and I can talk to him easier. So, and this position too, once I get him up to where a good stretch is, I can rest his leg on my shoulder, and now I'm hardly working at all to hold this stretch. Okay? So this is actually a really good position to hold a stretch for a minute instead of straining your shoulders or something. Okay? So that's how I would have done it if I had gotten in the right position. Okay?
One question, how do we know like how many repetitions we have?
How many what? I'm sorry?
How do we know how do we know the problem there, so we have to do 2 or 3 repetitions?
Oh, okay. So he's asking how do you know, like basically how much of a problem it is or how many repetitions to do. Well, I would say because you're probably, I don't know your career, but you're probably not as familiar with the human body as a physical therapist would be. So I would get direction from them. Like have them assess and say, what's his range of motion? Is it normal? Is it, just a mild or moderate contracture? And get their input of, is this a big problem or is this normal? Because unless you're very flexible or you're 2 years old, your leg doesn't go straight up and down, especially for grown men. I had somebody comment on that yesterday. I can't stretch that way. It's not normal to have straight up and down leg hamstring stretch. But young kids, they should be close to it. So you can have them assessed and see how big of a problem each area is, and then focus on the ones that are problematic. Okay. So the second picture, it's called the gastrocnemius stretch, but it's for the gastroc and the Achilles. The gastroc is that somewhat bulging muscle that you'll see, and that has 2 heads on the back of the lower leg. So I'm going to just roll this pan up so I can point to the areas. Oh, you have zippers. Whoop. Okay. So the gastroc is back here. Okay? It's the muscle that we can grab onto, or that sometimes looks large on someone with Duchenne. And the Achilles is the tendon that attaches that muscle to the heel. Okay, so this is a stretch for both of them. And that's towels in the picture on purpose, because what you want to do is put it under the knee. This is very large for you, so I'm going to put it under both of your knees. So what happens sometimes with those who have Duchenne and having large thighs, when we're focused on the stretch, which is going to happen down here, we accidentally hyperextend the knee. So you can avoid worrying about that by just putting something under the knee. So a small rolled up towel or a pillow will just keep that area from being predisposed to hyperextension. And the reason you don't want to hyperextend the knee is because then you're stretching ligaments. And when you have someone who has weak leg muscles, then it's like their ligaments kind of holding them up a lot of times too. So you don't want to overstretch those ligaments because they're depending on them. So protect the knee there. I'm going to take your sock off, okay? All right. So then the foot here. So to get this stretch, you're going to use the middle of your palm here. You can kind of grasp things by flexing it. So I'm going to put his heel in the palm of my hand here and grasp it that way. This is a hard one to see from far away, so We're a little bit up close on the video. Okay, so I'm going to grasp it from there. The first thing I need to do is keep everything low. Don't pull them up here. And then from the heel, I'm going to extend it. See how I'm pulling to lengthen the Achilles here? I want to make it longer. So I'm going to put my hand in the correct position. I'm pulling, and then I'm trying to bring his toes up towards his head. Okay? So it's kind of a two-step thing, and it's a little bit of one that it takes a lot of practice to feel that, oh, I got it, it's comfortable. So you put it in the palm of your hand, lengthen the Achilles first. See how I have control of his foot? Because I have his heel in my palm, you can control the whole foot from the heel. So I'm going to lengthen the Achilles and then bring his toes up towards his head. That's called dorsiflexion. Okay, that's a position that we want to go in. What you don't want to do is put your hand on the ball of his foot and push him up like this. Because we're hardly getting anything from the Achilles. What I'm doing is stretching out. Are you ticklish? I'm stretching out his foot, or the arch of his foot, and I don't want to do that. I want to stretch from the back of the foot, the Achilles and the gastroc. And his foot's basically resting on my arm. I'm not pushing a lot through there. See, it's here. It's just resting. Okay? Now, if you have someone who their foot turns inward a lot, right? You don't want to just stretch in that inward position. As much as you can, try to bring it so that it's in line with the lower leg, okay? As much as you can, as close as you can get to that position, and then do the stretch, okay? Sometimes it can be really tight inward, and just bringing it to what we call neutral, in line with the leg, that's a stretch in itself.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you have a kid that never wanted to stretch ever in his life, and now he's contracted, his toes are in, and he wants me to do something about it.
Oh, now.
Do you? Yeah. Now, I've been seeing you for my entire life and trying this.
Yeah, I know.
So is there any good, I mean, he wants to get the tendon release, and we're looking at that, but is there any reason to try and trying to do this, or are we going to get any motion when they're
Yeah. So what Jen's asking is, you have a 19-year-old that's never stretched, and they do have, I'm assuming, down and in. I've met your son.
He's the don't.
Huh?
Dylan Michelli Nelson is the do, and Austin is the don't.
Okay. So she's saying, you know, you have someone who never wanted to stretch, but they are contracted now, and now they're like, oh, wait, maybe we should do something. There is a point where you can have too much contracture that, you know, our force isn't going to be enough, it's not sustained long enough, it won't be effective. So you would have to do something more aggressive maybe. So you would look into serial casting, surgery, those types of things. But yeah, there is a point where I would like to say that you can always keep it from getting worse by starting a stretching routine now, but I'm not sure at what point he's at if you can make it better. It can be pretty rigid after a while. So stretch before it gets that way. Yeah, I know you try. I know you. I know that a lot of you have some difficulty getting the routines in, but do as best you can. But I would try other things and then give them a new starting point to start from. So, foot's turning in, keep it in neutral. Okay. Any other questions about the gastroc and Achilles? It's a tricky one sometimes, but once you get the hang of it, you'll realize you can do it. I have some parents. I like to give you guys all the questions others ask, so if you don't ask questions, I'm going to fill in the blank. All right, so some families, this is hard on their wrist, or maybe you have carpal tunnel syndrome or something like that. So we've sat in a chair at the end of the table here with one hand. Here, relax your leg. I'm pulling. Remember, I'm lengthening that Achilles first. And with the other hand, doing a gentle from the middle of the foot, again, not from the top of the foot. So doing a two-hand method here. Okay? So if that works better for you, there's an option there. Now you can do this stretch laying down or sitting. If he was sitting in a chair, I'd just have his legs out in front of him on a, a footstool or footrest if he's in a power chair.
Can you do that one in the bathtub? If they're sitting up in the bathtub?
Yeah, if your hands are all the way in the water. I mean, his legs got to be in the water, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like nice warm water. Yeah. Yes.
My son is in F5 and he has the
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. So he refuses to let me do this stretch because he says, I do this all the time in my chair. I've never seen him do it, but he says he does. So
He does an ankle stretch in his chair.
Yeah, so like he lifts his feet up so that they're straight out.
Ah.
So is that the same? Can I let him out of it?
No.
Okay.
You can tell him I said so.
I will.
Okay. No, actually what's happening, I use the F5. I use any of the power chairs that have the leg elevation to stretch the hamstrings. So when you're sitting, if any of you were able to sit up against something and put both legs out in front of you, so we'll pretend these are my legs. Right now I'm stretching my hamstrings, right? So that's what he's probably doing, as long as his knees aren't coming up. So if his legs are out straight, he's probably getting a nice hamstring stretch. But it doesn't really get him out of you doing the hamstring stretch because it's not as much. But I do use it for that. So that's Achilles, totally different. Okay? Yes, Jake?
I have a question. So thank you. I usually use the stander to stretch. So is it good to use a combination of the stander and the routine that you're doing right now, or is one better than the other, or?
I really like the stander for an Achilles and an ankle stretch. So I love that you're doing that. And are you doing it with your boots on?
Yes.
Perfect. So what I like about the fact that you're doing it with your boots on is that I'm almost assured that your ankle's in a good position, right? I'm assuming your boots are holding you in a nice position and your weight is going through your ankles to give them a good stretch. And if you do it for a long period of time, even better than me holding it for 60 seconds. Mm-hmm. So I love that you're doing it in your stander. I don't want to replace it completely because somebody needs to be there kind of keeping an eye and checking, making sure things are going well. So I wouldn't just stop completely with your other stretches, but that may be more of a check-in, let's see how it's doing, but keep up your standing routine for sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay. So for the next one, Ty, I'm going to have you lay on your stomach, okay? You can keep your head up on the pillow there. Do you want your sock back on? Oh, I have one more to do with sock off. Is that okay? Okay. All right, so the next one on the list is called the iliopsoas and IT stretch. So the iliopsoas is the hip flexor. It's just our fancy word for hip flexor. And the IT is the iliotibial band. So it's the band that goes from your hip down to the outside of your knee, basically. And you can picture these areas get tight, especially if you have someone who has to walk like this with their back arched and their hips flexed and their legs out to the side, or sit this way, right? Sit out with their legs to the side and flexed. These areas can get really tight. So we can get them both stretched at the same time. It's a little tricky at first, but like the other one, once you kind of get the hang of it, I'm going to pull your pant down for you. Shouldn't be a problem. But it's a two-step one as well. So like in the picture, you'll see I'm putting one hand on his low back, and that is just to keep his body still. Because as I start working on his legs, sometimes they like to roll and move, and then you miss your stretch. So one hand on his back. The other hand is going to cradle his leg. So go ahead and just relax. Let me swing your leg around. There you go. So I have him in my hand, and I've got his lower leg just cradled here. So let me put my hand back here to keep him nice and steady. With this hand, I'm going to first raise up. See how I'm extending his hip? Okay? So a lot of times when the guys lay down, I'm going to pretend, they'll be like this, right? Real flex through the hip. Ty gets to lay nice and flat, so I'm going to start from here and just pull up slightly. He's already straight, okay? He's extended at the hip. And from that point, I'm going to pull his leg towards his other leg to stretch the IT band. So if you think about it, I'm just reversing that position I just showed you where you're flexed at the hip with legs out to the side. Now I've got him extended at the hip with legs together. So just think about it that way, that you're reversing the problematic position with a stretch. So it is a two-stepper. If I hadn't had my hand on his back, even Ty would move. See how his body starts going all over the place? So this hand needs to stabilize, up and together. And you always do the leg on the opposite side. It would be really hard for me to do this leg and push away from me. So this is one on purpose, I'm doing the opposite leg. So I'm bringing him towards me, and I can stand here with a straight back and relaxed shoulders. Okay? If you have someone that can't lay on their stomach, oh, go ahead. Okay, yeah, it gets asked a lot. So there's a lot of guys, either they're not comfortable at all on their stomach or they just can't lay on their stomach anymore for other reasons. You can do this one laying on your side, and I'm going to have Ty, can you lay on your side facing out to everybody? Yeah, bring your shoulder under you. So he's going to lay here on his side. So hopefully you have someone that can lay on their side, because this is my second choice. So I'm still going to, see how he's rolling? I'm going to stabilize his body with one hand so he's not rolling all around. The other hand, I'm still going to cradle his leg, but I have like his knee in my hand, and I have his lower leg cradled either in my arm. I like to rest it on my hip, right here. And so our objective is the same. I need to straighten out his hip, bring him back into neutral, right? So now his thigh is in line with his body, and then legs together. Okay, so typically he might be out here if he were really tight, right? So I'm going to bring it back and then give a little bit of force, but let gravity help you. Drop it down towards the other leg. Okay, so that's a side-lying version of the same thing. Any questions on that one?
Does it work? The bottom leg, is that straight or turned?
It can be relaxed. So if he
Okay.
only relaxes when it's bent, that's okay. If he can just have it straight with the body, that's okay too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Can you do an exercise for the hip where they're on their back and then you cross the one leg over the other and plant the foot?
You can do that. It's not going to cause any problem, but it doesn't get to the same muscles. Because you're, I'm sorry.
Is it necessary? I mean, does it get muscles that are?
It's not usually necessary.
Okay.
You kind of, so she's asking, can you have him laying on his back and cross his leg across?
You cross it and then you bend it.
Oh, like this.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, actually, the guys like this one a lot, so it's kind of my secondary list. There's a lot of just tension. They don't really have a lot of lack of range of motion a lot of times. You can get them into this position, but it feels like a lot of relief, just like you and I do it after sitting all day or something like that. So you can do that one, laying on their back, knee up and across.
You go through and you plant the foot like flat and then kind of.
Yeah, just different variations. So it just depends on what angle of the hip you want. So this is just down low. This is up higher. Yeah, there's like knee to chest, all of those. So those aren't big problem areas, but they do feel good, so why not? If you have someone who has a spinal fusion or something like that, you have to be careful how high up you go with the hip. Okay. All right, we're getting there. Okay, so the fourth one on your lower extremity list is the soleus, and that's our other muscle in the calf. So the gastroc is the one everybody's used to seeing. The soleus is a very important muscle and gets overused a lot in Duchenne. It's very flat, and it's behind the gastroc. It's not as visible, but it's important. And the difference is you have to stretch this one with the knee bent. So I'm going to have Ty go back to his tummy, back on the other side. There you go. Comfortable there. Okay, so to stretch the soleus, you have to have the knee bent 90 degrees, right about there. Okay, and you're going to do the same concept where you're focusing on the back of the foot. I don't want to just go, okay, we're getting a good stretch, because I'm really stretching out his arch and not as much of the where I'm supposed to be focusing. So you can get like a little bit of a diamond shape or something with your hands and get around the back of the foot. Check yourself, see if you have control of the foot from the back, and then you can go into this. And if you can see, I'm going to come here so you can see better. This is his Achilles. You can see it get tight and stretched out, but I want to put a little more force, so I'm going to get here where I can. I'm not going to push it any farther than that. So this, I can get his Achilles, and then that soleus is the muscle. It's underneath here. Okay? And so you would stretch that for 60 seconds or do it twice if it's one of the areas needed. So when you have ankle tightness, sometimes it's a gastroc, sometimes it's a soleus, sometimes it's both. So it's important to have them both assessed and see which ones you should be doing. Okay? Yes.
Me again, sorry.
That's all right.
Is this good for when their feet are starting to turn in? Is this a good one? Okay. or
Yeah,
is there
this
another
one and the other one I showed you are both good for when their feet are starting to turn in, because again, if he had a foot that went like this,
Right.
at rest, right, turning in and pointing down a bit, what I would do first is see if I can line it up with his lower leg, bring it to center, right? So sometimes it takes some force, bring it to center, and then stretch him.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
And again, if he can't lay on his stomach, you can do this one in sitting. I'm not going to have him move too quickly right now, but he would just be sitting here. I could be on a chair in front of him, and I can do the ankle from the front because his knee is bent, right? If he were sitting with his legs out, I can get the gastroc soleus. And if his leg is down, I could get the gastroc. If I put the leg down, I can get the soleus. Okay? Thank you. I'm sorry?
That 90 degrees, right? So you can push like this towards this.
The knee, 90 degrees?
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of the guys, a lot of them can get to 90 degrees. So if you can, just please do 90 degrees.
Are we going to arm push like that and push like that?
No, no, no. You don't want to do more. That's not the important part. The important part is that you just get this to 90 degrees and then do the ankle stretch. Don't worry about going further. Yeah, that's a whole different muscle. Yeah, so just do this one at 90. Okay? All right, I'm going to put your sock back on since your foot's right here and your toes are cold. Boop. Okay. All right, so let's move to the upper extremities. The two most common are on your slides here. So let's see. I'm going to have you sit up at the edge of the table here with me, just like we're sitting next to each other. Okay? So the two most common areas of need in the upper extremities, at least when you're getting started, is wrist and finger extension and supination, which is what we call turning your forearm upward, like this, with your palm up. So we're going to start on wrist and finger extension. So you can ask a lot of the guys, show me that you can put your fingers straight, and they do this, right? But there actually is tightness usually. If you ask them to put their palm back and try to stretch their fingers out, you may only get this, right? Okay, so a lot of us have tightness too, or you'll get numbness and tingling because you're stretching your nerves. So what you want to do is stretch in this position, because this isn't going to get you anything because it looks normal as it is. Their fingers are straight. But if you ask them, well, put your fingers back or put your hand back, and their fingers curl like this, then you can tell there's tightness in those long tendons. Okay, it's the long tendons that go all the way out to the fingers. So first let me see yours, and then I'll teach them. Okay, so Ty luckily doesn't have any tightness in his hands, but we're going to pretend, okay? So I'm going to put his wrist back first, and he can do it all by himself, get his fingers back. So let's pretend you have tightness, and they curled up like that. Oh no, what am I going to do? So here's what we have. No problem, right? Let's stretch. So I have to keep his wrist back with one hand, and with the other one, I'm going to go along the fingers until I can get him as straight as he can go, and then just hold them there. See, I've kind of got his fingers clasped between mine to keep them straight. So wrist back, and then fingers out straight. Okay, you can do it down like this. You can do it up like this. You can do it laying down. As long as you've got the wrist back as far as you can get it, and then the fingers.
I actually have a question. So is it better, in your opinion, to use just the hand like what you've been doing right now, or to use the phone?
Ah, the phone.
Yeah, like which
You
is
see Dr.
the
Wong.
best to use?
He introduced the phone a couple years ago. Okay, so this is better if you have someone who has really good control of your fingers. But sometimes when you're the one doing the stretching, you've got two fingers, but then these two get away a lot, or it's hard to keep the fingers straight because sometimes you're pushing here and then they do this little funny thing on the backside. You got to watch out for all those little escapes. So if this is too difficult, I like the phone idea. You get the phone along the hand, the fingers are out straight, and then you kind of sandwich their hand through a phone and your own hand while the wrist is back, and you've got nice straight fingers and the wrist is back. Is that what you were referring
Yes.
to? Okay. Yeah, and it was funny because I think I heard it first from someone, a lot of our families in California come out to see Dr. Wong too, when that big iPhone was introduced. They're like, slap that big thing on there and stretch your hands. So no problem with that at all.
Self-stretching, this one can, like, we've heard of that.
Yeah.
Because as we're sitting here, I'm looking at my hands going, well, I'm a carrier, and that's about as far as I go.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to ask my husband to stretch me after he stretches. Is there a way to do some of these self-stretching?
Yeah, and especially as an adult, you can be more aware if you're doing an effective stretch. So there are some self-stretches. I believe the slide is still in this deck. I'll show you a little bit. But the hand self-stretches, doing this is great. But a lot of our guys, they'll let their fingers still go this way. So you have to be careful if you've assigned them to do some self-stretches on their own, that they're doing them well and effectively, because if it's not effective, then it's a waste of everyone's time. So there's this one. There's putting your hand on the chair next to you, palm down. And the further back you put your hand, the more stretch you're getting. So I would have Ty, if he were doing self-stretches, put his hand right here, no problem. So put your hand further and further back. He's getting more and more wrist stretch. Okay, and same thing for any of you, especially sitting in a conference for 2 days, stretch out a little. So any of those are good self-stretches as long as they're done well. I wouldn't say they replace the hand over hand stretches because you can give the right amount of force and position, but they're nice for them to be able to do at school or throughout the day. Okay, so the last one up there is our forearm supination. So if you put your elbows at your side and bend your elbows 90 degrees and do this motion, this is supination, pronation. Exactly, supination, pronation. And what happens is a lot of us, and especially our Duchenne guys, get stuck closer and closer to pronation, and then we try to get them to supination, and they're like, I can't turn my hands upward. And as you're all sitting there, before I started telling you about this, you're probably sitting there with your hands down in pronation. And if you're driving a joystick power chair, your hands are in pronation. If you're typing, you know, your palms are down a lot of the day. So it's good to stretch them, get that range of motion back. So what you need to do is have the elbow at the side bent 90 degrees, because if I had my arm straight, I'm rotating my shoulder, and that's not what I want. I want elbow at side, so I'm just rotating the forearm. So I'd have Ty here with his elbow at his side, and then let's pretend your hand's down first, okay? And then I'm gonna grab him from above his wrist into the forearm area. I don't want to turn his hand and stretch out his wrist. I want his forearm. We have these two bones that just rotate over each other, and I'm turning his palm up using his forearm. Okay, if he got stuck somewhere around here, I would stop there and just give it the pressure like I did for all the other stretches. Okay, and then as he gave in, I would go, okay, we're getting a little bit more, as much as you can get each time you're doing the stretch. Okay. Yes, I would do the 60 seconds. And this can be a real problem area for some of the guys. Other guys, I mean, not until they're in their 20s do we ever have a problem with this, but some of the guys, even very young, can have some stiffness in that. Okay? So and that's the supination. So those are those 6 stretches that are the most common ones. Any questions on those? Yes?
So a lot of parents have, back problems and things like that from carrying. So is there, aside from, being close and on the side there, like, are there any other tricks that we can use? Because having your hands out like that for 2 minutes for each stretch is hard.
Yeah, it is. So what I would say is when you're doing the routine, try different positions for yourself. So, right, I've got him here, and I'm twisting because I'm trying to talk to you all and do this. I wouldn't recommend that, right? I don't want to be in a twisted position over and over again. I would have probably done it while he was on his back with his arm at his side when I was in a comfortable position facing him, or standing. If I had been standing right next to him, that's actually better for my back than twisting around. But our basic rules of thumb are have them as close to you as possible so you're not reaching out, because you don't want to carry a load or push and pull from far away. So be as close as you can be to whatever you're doing. And what does it say? And don't do the twisting. But just know that there's more than one position to do all of these. So just because I just showed you something today, if it's not working for you, there's other positions. So it's been throughout the years that I've had so many families go, we cannot get the ankle stretch. My hand isn't strong enough to hold that and whatever. So we've come up with those other ways of doing it. And so stretching is, like I said earlier, it's not rocket science. It just takes some learning for the kids and learning for the stretcher too. Yeah, it's as solid of an answer I can give you because we'll have to go one-on-one. Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you so much. Let me get your shoes on you so you don't slip. You gonna go play video games? Oh, this one. Got it? All right, you're all set. Thanks. Thank you, Ty. Okay, so let me see if I have it on the side. Okay, so all of these stretches and so much more, there's a YouTube channel under CureDuchenne Cares on YouTube that I started out a long time ago. I was like, I'm just gonna make video answers because I was getting the same questions over and over again through email and Facebook and everywhere else. So I just started making videos of the most common questions. So the very first video I did was stretching. So that's on that channel. And it has these basic 6 with a little bit of extra information. And then there's a self-stretching video also with a bunch of different ideas. Let me grab this. One of those ideas being this thing, which is called a Nada chair. So I have one here. If you haven't used one or haven't heard about it, come up and ask me. I'll show you what it is, and if you want to pass it around. It's something that I used with other pediatric populations and then realized our guys need this stretch too. And so that's that position. Oh, Lisa took off. That's that position of legs out in front of you. So you can stretch the hamstrings and the calves at the same time, and especially with boots on. So this young man in the picture doesn't have his AFOs on, but that would be ideal. So the ankles are in a nice position, and I'm stretching his hamstrings at the same time. So this loop would have gone around his foot, and in the video it shows how you put it on and how you use it. So it's called the NADA chair, N-A-D-A. It's sold on nadachair.com, and it's even on Amazon now. It's about $50. You need to order it with the kiddie up straps. That's this extension, so that it's long enough to go around the feet. So it's not a chair with kiddie up straps. If you have someone who's really tall, like when Hawken got tall enough, we had to order the longer straps. So just look at the categories, and so you can order the right one. But the video will show you how to use it, but you can get a hamstring and calf stretch at the same time. And it's more of a long duration stretch. So it's not just 60 seconds. They can sit in this for 10 minutes at a time and do it twice, something like that, about 20 minutes, while they're playing a video game or doing homework or something like that. So there's videos on self-stretching, on passive stretching and self-stretching. And then there's also a video on massage techniques. So, I mentioned the ideal program is do something like warm, hot shower or bath, and then do some massage before stretching. Well, this neuromuscular massage therapist that I used to work with, she developed a home program that was easy enough for, I think, anybody to just kind of take it home with them and do it. So we recorded it, and she shows us how to do it. And you can do this technique that she shows on basically any part of the body, if you need the hamstring or the back or the shoulder. So take a look at that video if you're interested in doing that. And it's not, you don't have to have a massage license to carry this out. It's a very at-home, parent-friendly program. Okay. There's also a video on aquatic therapy. Oh, I'm sorry, yes? Did you say oil? I recommend that to reduce the friction. So a massage oil of some kind if you need to reduce the friction between your skin and theirs. But I don't recommend anything specific. You need to use what's right for you guys and what you're not allergic to, those types of things, absolutely. I believe in the video the massage therapist did talk about oils. I can't recall all the content right now. Another video was on aquatic. Well, it's on use of the pool. It's swimming activities. So that's Hawken a couple years ago. But when he was newly diagnosed, I was an aquatic physical therapist, so he and I would get in the pool about once a week and do aquatic therapy. So when he was, 15 or so, I said, hey, can we get back in the pool and recreate it because I want to do a video on it? So we did a video of a lot of the activities that we used to do. I'm not in the pool anymore. Wish I was, but I just don't have the time anymore. But there's a lot of things that you can do in the pool that help with range of motion, with real gentle exercise, helps with respiration and pulmonary health. So you can check out the video if that helps you. There's also a handout that you can just download and have at home. All of this is on the website, on CureDuchenne's website under the Care tab. But this isn't like technically aquatic physical therapy, right? You don't have to be a PT to carry this out. You're not going to harm someone. But obviously you need to have somebody who's water safe, who is comfortable in the water. But I really am a huge advocate for the aquatic environment, whether it's physical therapy or swimming activities that are adapted to be safe for our guys. But it has so many advantages. The aquatic environment is really good for our bodies. No matter how disabled you are, you can still benefit from being in the water. So it's something important to look into. Okay, now we're going to talk about transfers, because we do talk about back pain. Oh, yes. I'll repeat it. That's okay.
So our PT gave us, or we gave us a link. We bought like an inner tube that goes around my son's neck.
Yes.
And it totally changed the way that he worked in the water, and now he loves it.
Oh.
Before, he was weak in his neck, so kind of keeping his head above water
Yeah.
really hard. But this tube really changed
Yeah.
everything.
So what Tammy's referring to is a tube that was it a PT or somebody?
Yeah, you can buy them
Yeah, you can buy online all these different assistive flotation devices, and there are some that look like a inflated or a foam, sometimes neck collar. And you're like, who would want to swim with that on? But for some people, that makes them feel like I'm safe, I'm comfortable, now I can move the rest of me. And for her son, that worked and made him enjoy the water. So kind of keep an open mind when you're looking at the things that are out there and use what works for you. There's all kinds of fun and safety devices that can be used. Yes?
Eric enjoyed playing soccer in the pool with a weighted ball that stayed down on the floor.
Oh, okay.
So he would kick it back and forth as his therapist.
Uh-huh.
And he felt like he was doing sports.
Yeah, yeah. So he played sports in the water. And so all of those we would do in moderation, but that's an enjoyable way for him to experience being in the water and benefiting from it in so many other ways. Uh-huh.
Is it okay for them to put weights on their legs
Good question.
if they're floaters, like?
Yeah. So Tammy's asking if it's okay to put ankle weights, are you talking about ankle weights on them while they're in the water? And I just had somebody email me about this the other day. So it is okay if it doesn't require them a lot of work they're not required to like kick with them on or something like that. You don't want to add to the kind of work, but some of us are very buoyant, right? And so you're trying to walk in the water, or the guys are trying to walk in the water, and it's a big struggle, or maybe it's too deep, so you get more buoyant the deeper the water is. So if you need to put on ankle weights, lightweight ankle weights, to give them a little bit of extra weight in the water, then that's fine, and they're walking around or playing, but they don't feel like they're floating away, that's fine. I just wouldn't do something that's tiring them out. I can't hear. Uh-huh. Oh, he's not comfortable with water yet. You know what? I'm not a professional in that. I'm sure there's such good tactics of getting someone comfortable in the water and water safe as well. But I would just start with regular swim lessons, maybe one-on-one. You know, you have to maybe pay for a private lesson, but like a one-on-one lesson where they're just learning about water and getting comfortable. And I've seen these classes, and they can go the first day or two, the first lesson or two, without even getting in the water. Just playing around it, getting used to what it is and that sort of thing until they get comfortable with the water. But it is an important process to start, and at some point, I hope that he would get comfortable with the water. Yeah.
There is like, I heard the recommendations for using a hot pool for kids.
A hot pool, is that what you said? I don't know the therapeutic temperature that it should be. I have other PTs in the room. Any other? Do you have a solid answer on that?
I think what I've seen is usually between about 83, 84 degrees and maybe 92 or 93 degrees. So basically, if it's not stressful, if it's cold and it's stressful to get in,
Yeah.
or if it's hot and it's stressful to get in, then that's going to be too far in either direction. So it just should be comfortable, kind of like getting into a warm bath.
Yeah, yeah, because cold water can make you feel more tight, and hot water can make you exhausted faster.
Another thing would be, some of the boys have sensory issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he has other sensory issues, like about certain materials that he likes and doesn't like and things like that, an occupational therapist might be a
Mhm.
good person to talk to help work with him on the sensory things about the water and the other, if he has other issues that are sensory related.
Yeah. There are a lot of our guys that have sensory related issues as well. And I mean, we know that for sure. And so have any of you in the room had success with OT, with sensory integration or sensory integration in general? I mean, I have. I work with a great OT that's good at that. So you might have to go that route just to get them used to the water and that feeling. Okay. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about transfers. It's an important topic that we don't talk about very much because it's just assumed everybody's either knows what they're doing, I guess, or is just going to do what they do anyways. But I've seen so many of the families I work with hurt themselves or hurt their child, right? It happens a lot. People get dropped during transfers, and fractures happen so easily in a lot of our guys, or they don't have the right transfer equipment in place, and now mom or dad or whoever usually does the transfers is injured and can no longer lift them. Now what are you going to do? So we're going to talk first about some of the most appropriate ways to do transfers if you have to do it yourself, and then also the equipment that's out there. Just a bit. So some of the factors that affect transfers, the cognitive ability of the person that you're transferring, right? You don't want someone that's going to fight you, doesn't know what you're doing, or doesn't cooperate. Their physical function, so you're adding into it. How much can they help or can't they? You know, are they able to come up to their feet if you help them, or are you going to do a full lift? So their functional abilities absolutely come into play. Any other clinical restraints or history of any of these could come into play with what kind of transfer you choose. If you've had someone that's had a hip fracture or a spinal fusion, you may not be able to do certain types of transfers or certain equipment. So when you're transferring someone, and we talked about body mechanics a little bit, body mechanics for you, if you're the one doing the transferring, is very important. You don't want to injure yourself lifting up someone who could be at a maximum weight for you to be lifting and doing it over and over again throughout the day, or carrying them on your back up the stairs over and over again. I'm just kidding. You're not the only family that has done that. Okay, so what you need to do is make sure that you position that chair or whatever you're transferring them from and to very close. So if I'm transferring someone up to this table, I'm not going to carry them from here all the way over the table. I'm going to bring those two things as close together as possible, so my transfer is the time is limited. All of these things may seem silly to even have to mention, but they get forgotten all the time. So this is when I usually either hear someone got injured or dropped, is the footrest got in the way and they tripped over it. The arm, or move the armrest out of the way. Because why do you have to lift someone up and over an armrest to a bed when you could just go sideways, right? Most of the armrests will flip up out of your way. And set the brakes or turn the power off. Right. I'm saying yes. Yeah, so that is probably the most common one, I guess, maybe more than even footrest, is forgetting to set the brakes. So I'm going to transfer someone into a wheelchair, and my leg just touched it, and it moved. And now I'm like, wait. And you keep hitting it. So you got to set those brakes. And then the power controls, if you don't turn it off, you swing them around, and your elbow hits that joystick, and then the chair moves. Okay. Or you run over your foot. I've been run over by a 400-pound chair. Is anyone else? Yeah, all of us. Okay, good. So let's turn off those powers. Anyway, so those are just my points for you to remember. And then preparing yourself for it. So this ergonomic type thing that we always talk about is that wide base of support. So anytime you're going to lift something heavy, you're not going to stand feet together and give yourself this terrible small base of support. Have a wide base of support, like your shoulder width, and using your legs, not your back. So all that means is get down. Right? Use the strength of your legs. Work out if you need to build up your strength, but use the strength of your legs. Get down to where you need to be instead of bending over to there. Engage those core muscles. So, all right, so you're down here, but you didn't tighten anything up, right? You got to tighten up your core muscles, your back and your belly, and get yourself in a set position. Like, okay, I'm set. I'm as stable as I can be before I even start anything. And then, like I said earlier, just stay as close as possible. Don't reach out to lift someone up. Get close and comfortable. Hopefully they're family members. I mean, I'm just their PT, and when I transfer someone, they're hugging me tight. They're going to be as close as they can. So I'm going to have a short video of one of the ways to do a one-person transfer. So let it play. So I'm going to get him as close as possible to me. If he couldn't hug me on his own, I would have flipped his arms around my shoulders so that I can get in there under his shoulders. And I'm going to pause there. So this position I have him in was the best way for me to transfer him at that time. So what I do, got him as close as I can. His arms are around me so that I can work with his body. I don't need his arms in my way. And this arm here, I got it as far around his rib cage as possible, because how many of you know that the guys will slip through your arms? Right? You get your arm around the rib cage and they can slip through. So I've got that arm around him as much as I could. If I could get it in his armpit, I would have. Okay? But my other arm is actually doing a lot of work here, because this arm with his hip flexed is keeping him from sliding through. If I just lift him like this and try to carry him over, he could just slip through, right? Because his shoulders aren't strong enough to help me. So this hand on purpose scooped up under his thigh to hold him from sliding through. So I've got his body as close to me as possible, and I scooped up under his hip, so now his weight is supported, he's not slipping through at all. Okay? And then, I forgot what I was supposed to do. We figured out how this clicker works with it. Oh, can you start it over? Okay, thank you. So I'll let it play all the way through. You can see how we do it. So I've got under that thigh, and this chair is right there. Okay? That's one way to do it. I know a lot of people like the, oh, it's going to play again, the scoop up, you've got their back under one arm and their knees under another arm. If you can keep them close to your body and you're not doing a lot of twisting and that makes more sense for you, then do it that way. But this is just one way that, this way beats just grabbing them around the chest and having to deal with dangling legs and slipping through. Okay? The gait belt? The gait belt is useful if you can't get a good hold of them, and it's much safer to have something stable like that. So if you haven't seen a gait belt, they come in all shapes and sizes, some with handles, some with not. Gait belts are good, and it gives you one little added security. And a lot of times the school districts and all would like to have something like that to help them. Okay, the two-person transfer, so hopefully you have somebody there to help you transfer at least some of the time. I see some no's, but if you do, two-person transfer is safer and less work for you than one-person transfer, obviously. But this is how I'd recommend you doing it. You'd have one person at the feet and one person at the head, taking the upper body and lower body. Got the foot plates out of the way. So I'm under his knees to keep the lower weight, and his mom, the only thing I would have changed about how she did it is she just grabbed him from kind of right here. I would have had her wrap around, get her hands like basically in his armpits so that she had really good control of his trunk. Behind the back.
So like making a hammock out of hammock.
Oh, you two at the same time.
Yeah, it's one that I've suggested to people. I think my son James.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's something because.
But don't you trip up over the equipment that you just pulled him out of and stuff?
No, we just walk forward. So
Oh.
on either side of, like, say Jake right now, on his legs behind his back.
Yeah.
And we just sort of lift and walk forward.
Gotcha.
As his tumor, but I don't know if that's like is that like a real lift? You made it
I don't know what's a real lift and what's not. I mean, you'll see different things in different manuals, especially like nursing assistants and all that have to do it a lot. But that one's okay as long as you're thinking through all of the cautions, right? The equipment's not in your way. You guys are working well together. He's not going to slip through. Those types.
tall enough to lean behind the chair like she's doing because there's a headrest.
Oh, because of the headrest out of these chairs. Yeah.
Figure out how to do that.
You know what one family does that I thought was genius is they put the chair in recline and support him in sitting so the chair is out of the way. So the chair would be here and I'd have the back of the chair out of my way. I'd get around his back so I'm maybe between the bed and the chair. So I'm behind his back and just doing this. I know. I didn't either. Someone showed me.
I have two questions.
Yes.
So the first one's about the one-person transfer. So at my school, they're very adamant about like me using the slide board, and it's a wooden one. And I really, do you think that's an effective method? I don't know if you already touched on this, but
I didn't.
I kind of have some pinching when they put it under me, and I have to kind of lean to the side.
Yeah. There's nothing like, I wouldn't say the slide board's wrong, but it can be dangerous to transfer that way too. So I'm glad that you're able to use it. It sounds like safely. You're not sliding off of it or falling off of it. You have enough trunk support, or are they grabbing you anyway?
I have the trunk support, yeah.
Yeah, and you're also able to lean to help them with the board, even though they pinch you and it gets uncomfortable. There's nothing, I wouldn't say it's not wrong, but maybe they could do it a little better. And if it stops working for you, if you don't feel safe with it, like if you feel like your trunk's getting too weak to do that anymore, you need to tell them we need to do something else.
Okay. And then my second question was, my PT had actually said that I didn't use the slide board one time, and she was kind of upset that I didn't. And she said, we're kind of getting close to having two people. And I'm pretty sure she meant that there needed to be two people for the slide board, but I wasn't sure what she meant by that. Do you have any thoughts on?
Well, from your description, it sounds like that's probably what she was talking about. Close to two
Okay.
people.
I'm just curious if
transfer
that,
you?
like, how that would work with the slide board.
What do you transfer to using the slide board?
The toilet.
Okay. Yeah, so I was wondering about heights of things. Like
Yeah.
if you could just slide across without a slide board, or you probably do need something because of the heights. Yeah.
Well, I have a commode
Okay.
that goes on the toilet, so it kind of makes the chair in the toilet.
Well, and because
so
does your chair have adjustable height?
Yes,
Yeah, so
it
if you're
does.
able to adjust to the same height as the commode, then the extra equipment may not be necessary. But it depends on heights. If it's not an even transfer, then yeah, you either need people to help you or you need an equipment to help you.
Yeah, they're transfer Nazis at the school.
Every school's so different. They're like, we have to use a Hoyer lift. We will not touch him. I'm like, okay.
And we have a gate belt with the slide board too.
Yeah. Do they make
Yeah.
you put a helmet on just in case you fall?
Yeah. put some
Yeah,
knee
bubble wrapping.
pads.
Yeah, no, you have to deal with what your school district's doing. I'm glad that they meet all of your other needs. Just hopefully they'll work with you on it. Yes?
What's the proper way to actually use a slide board if they're too heavy for one, and there's only one person home? I mean, is there a proper?
You mean they're too heavy for
Say the
a one-
child is too heavy to lift, and you're home alone with them, and you need to transfer them.
I would say probably not the slide board. That's probably not the most appropriate means. Because if you're only person there and they're too heavy for you anyway, then the slide board could get really tricky. And it's probably not safe enough to be recommended. I would recommend a lift. Yeah. I know. You're like, don't say that.
I have one.
Yeah, I mean, I can't stand up here and say, yeah, just do the slide board, because if his weight shifts one way or the other and you can't catch him, then that's where slide boards get very tricky.
We just use a mega mover.
Yeah, the mega movers, the love handles, those are
rather
great.
than hauling the
But you
Hoyer lift.
can't do those one person either, right?
No, but I
Yeah.
mean, even when it's the two of us, we have a Hoyer lift, but we just find
Yeah.
it easier to just pick the mega mover and just pick them up and.
Yeah, so the mega movers and the love handles, those are all like the sling systems where, two people basically are picking someone up and being the lift. Okay. So lift transfers. I'm just going to show you a video of one, right? There's there's portable lifts, there's ceiling track systems, there's temporary systems, but this is a video, it's a little bit longer than the other ones, of lift transfer, if you haven't used one. This is a young man who was non-ambulatory, but still very, like Jake was showing us, very functional for shifting his weight to help us get the sling on. So he was very independent, wanted to always do it himself, so we let him set himself up. And yes, he always talks, even when we're videoing. Very charismatic guy. So we got the sling on by himself. This is a portable lift that has an electric remote. So I bring it over to him, and he's going to connect everything the way he likes it. Because if I put it on the wrong ring, nothing happens. I have to redo it. So now he has the control in his hand, because this is an electric one. So a lot of times I hear insurance doesn't want to cover the electric option, maybe just the manual or the hydraulic options. I've had some families that have been able to get it. So he has the electric option, which puts him in better control of what's going on, and I'm just doing the physical pushing him around, getting him to the table. So that's how we would use the lift. The lifts come in all different kinds of varieties. This is a fairly compact one, and some of them you can even fold up to be able to take with you. They're not small by any means, but they do fold up. You can put them in an adaptive vehicle or a trunk.
The problem I have with those is I can't get that fork under anything.
Oh, yeah. You have to take them.
Under my couch, it won't go under. I can't use it in the bathroom.
Yeah. And
I have it, but
I forget now, because we were actually looking at all the models we could find to find the lowest clearance one, but the wheels are there. So it's like the lowest clearance is 4 inches or something. So maybe it was 5 inches. Yeah, so there's the width of the wheel system also, and also the height. So you have to be able to get it under the bed, get it under the couch if you're going to transfer someone to those things. So yeah, they're not always a good brand. That's why you need Mega Mover, because you can transfer anywhere. So there's mobile lifts. These are just the categories. There's the track and the ceiling mounted lifts, which will take you from one room to the next if you need to, or just within one room. And then these are freestanding or portable ones. So if you're in a rental home, or like that's the video I just showed, that young man when he went to college, they purchased a portable freestanding one for his dorm room so that they can move it to his next dorm room the next year. They're obviously not going to put a track system in his dorm room. But he did this so he could get himself into the sling, and it was electric, and get himself all the way into the bathroom and then back to his bed. So it gave him a lot of independence for the first 2 years of college to have this. So there's things out there, there's options, but there's always, you got to deal with funding and getting the right equipment and those types of things. Oh, and this is there's a ton of slings. So I've had a lot of families that, there's lots of reasons why some equipment doesn't get used. But if it's because the sling is uncomfortable, doesn't fit, doesn't work for you or whatever, there's a lot of slings out there. So make sure you get the right sling in place. Yep. And so we had a great presentation by Michael yesterday all about equipment. So I'm not going into equipment at all today, but I wanted to let you know you should all have one of these in your bag, correct? Yeah. So this is a resource guide that we got the funding to produce last year. And the equipment always changes. Not as fast as like your iPhone updates, but the equipment does change. But this is pretty current, and it has a lot of different areas in it for you. And if you need it, if you need a PDF copy of it or want to send it to someone, it's under the Care tab on our website right here. It's a PDF you can download. Okay. It has one little section about the beds, but it's not too comprehensive. Okay? So that's all of our physical therapy slides. I know we're having a presentation right after this, so I don't want to butt into her time too much, and I'm glad I heard a lot of questions already.